Guys, thanks for tuning in again to another episode of Project Peak Performance. In this episode, what we're going to try and do is cover some of the reasons why New Year's resolutions aren't working and what you can do to enable yourself to hit these targets of your New Year's resolutions in the future. And basically, unfuck your 2024. There you go, guys. I've dropped it. That is what we're calling it. Unfuck your 2024. So, I've not really got any idea of what we can talk about on this, guys. So what I did is I went on to ChatGPT this morning and I had a look for what are the reasons. I didn't know what the reasons were. I've got an idea of what my reasons are, but I didn't want to make it all about me or individuals. So what's the general consensus? What are the reasons why people don't hit their goals? And I'm going to take you through a couple of them now. So number one was setting unrealistic goals. Number two was lack of planning. Number three was lack of support. Number four was lack of commitment. And where was the fifth one? Setting up unrealistic goals. So there's ChatGPTs. This is the same as the first one. that's AI for you guys. That's AI for you.
AI doesn't fail. That's why what's wrong with these humans? Why can't they just say they're going to do it and do it?
So one of the big things as I was reading through this, it struck out to me, lack of a good plan was one of the major reasons. So when I say lack of a good plan, some people say, I want to lose some weight. Okay. And then it kind of stops there. And if you've not got a decent end goal to go to, how the fucking hell are you ever going to get there? You know, what does that look like? How much is that? So for me, a lot of this boils into really having a good idea of what you want to achieve and then going backwards and breaking down how you can take those steps to achieve it and monitor it along the way. But I'm dead interested to learn about what your guys' experience has been on this. I mean, have you ever set any I don't think I've ever set any New Year's resolutions, if I'm really honest. But have you guys ever set any? And if they've worked or if they failed?
I set 9 every year.
9, okay.
9 every year. And I've done that for quite a while, actually. And the way that I kind of set it up is I've got my top 3 personal goals. So they're not really New Year's resolutions. I think that's a bit bullshit. I set goals, things that I'm going to actually do. I don't quite know what New Year's resolution actually means, if I'm honest, but same thing. So I've got 3 personal, that are my top 3 personal, that obviously more family related, you know, parents, that sort of thing, kids. 3 professional, what the top 3 business related kind of goals that I'm working towards, and then 3 on fitness. And then the last 2 years, I've done a big stretch goal as like one thing to round it up to 10. But for probably since like 2015, I've done 9, and I've actually got them all on my phone, like going all the way back as well. And I've got a friend of mine, a good pal of mine, that does something similar, and we always mess each other either between Christmas and New Year or just after New Year, and we WhatsApp each other with what our goals are, how we did the year before, what the new ones are, and a bit of accountability between us. And yeah, so I've always done it that way. And I find 9 feels unattainable, but 3 family ones, 3 professional ones, and 3 fitness ones broken down becomes attainable. And I normally hit 7 or 8 out of 9. I've never gone below 7 out of 9. I've never hit 9.
I've got a question for you, Ian. I know this was like a round robin, but I think you've created a really good foundation to build from on this topic. Do you have a theme on the 8th and 9th that normally drop off, or does it come from all categories?
Comes from all categories, and it's normally the one that I wasn't emotionally connected to enough.
Interesting.
Would you change it from 9 ever? If you felt, actually, I'm putting that one in there to make up the 3, would you ever do a 2 or a 1 in a certain category just because you knew you were passionate about it and committed to it? Or do you feel like you always want that 9? I
should do that, because that's the reason why it's a filler. It's a filler.
Is it reduced 2 per category, or is it a case of you're just looking at all, or are you going to stick to it and just aim and strive for 9 next year?
I always have put 9 in, but Alex's point is valid, because in an answer in your initial point, the 2 that I don't get or the 1 I don't get is normally the idea in the moment rather than something that's coming from my gut and from my heart.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, Alex. Sorry, I didn't realize you were going to speak then.
I just might round this up in terms of, so this year out of your 9, how do you know how many you will complete on, and have you done next year's already?
I think we've all been following Ian's fitness journey, right? So we know he smashed that.
Well, yeah, I've done that one quite nicely actually. But some of them are ongoing goals, so I can only say yes at the end of the year. But the ones at the moment, because I've got like green ticks on when I do something, because I sort of go back to these every couple of weeks, I would say. But I've got green ticks on certain ones, like active agents, avocado 30, smashed that earlier on in the year, ticked it. Hit my 5K, half marathon and marathon PB, done all 3. So ticked it. But then I've got something like be committed to the hybrid shape with like physical look. So as in look like a gym rat and run like Mo Farah. That I can't tell you until the end of the kind of year. Yeah. But
what does that look like to you though? Have you got an image of what that needs to look like for you to fulfill it?
Sexy as fuck.
So when you look in the mirror, you need to go, that guy is sexy as fuck.
Yeah. Need to go, yes, he's on point. Now I had a couple of big dinners this weekend, but I'm all right at the moment, if I'm honest. Other than that, no, just being in better shape, just being able to PB in the gym. So I PB'd my dumbbell chest this morning, for example, whereas I may go and run. I've still got a 10-mile PB that I want to do between now and the end of the year. So just those sort of things. But I think for me, Rob knows my phrase, one of my my taglines that kind of sit in my head: be stronger than your excuses. And that all of these things go back to, if you really want to do it and you've set it for a reason, the fear of working out what's going to happen if you don't do it is a driving force for me that stops me letting my excuses kill that goal in a sort of roundabout way. And I think a lot of people, when you look at those numbers, unrealistic goals. No, it wasn't unrealistic. That's a bullshit excuse you're giving yourself. You wanted to set it, you just didn't do it. Planning, didn't want it enough. Otherwise you'd have planned for it. Support, no one else is helping you with your goals, mate. Get on with it. And commitment, like you didn't commit to the first 3 and you didn't do it. So chat's right. It's your fault. Basically, it's the way I look at it. That's the harsh reality of it. If you didn't do your New Year's resolution, it's because you didn't want it.
And that's the podcast episode.
And that's the episode.
There you go. Pull your socks up, grow a set, and fucking crack on. I think is what Ian's saying.
But try to distill it to give a little bit back to the crowd.
No,
I'd like to jump in there with.
I'm going to ask Rob, what are the reasons why these people aren't doing it?
So first one, competing commitments. Have you ever looked up on it? Go and look at a thing called competing commitments. Like you either commit to one or the other. So like Ian said, if you're not doing it, it's because your choice is that the other commitments are out competing what you want to achieve. And the second one is understanding if you're trying to create new habits, you can't just stop habits. They have to be replaced with something alternative. So people go out at the beginning of the year and go, I'm going to eat cleaner and I'm going to do this and do that. But you have to understand, like, if you want to stop smoking in the new year, there has to be a replacement habit to stop that. Otherwise you will go back to it. So like, a lot of people, if you look at someone who has got a bad lifestyle, alcohol, drugs, all sorts of stuff like that, and then wants to go into it, they tend to replace it with fitness because it's another addictive thing that you can jump yourself back into. So yeah.
There was a couple of examples of that. Have you heard Stephen Bartlett talk about his dad, who was a big smoker? Whenever he got in the car, he had cigarettes in the glove compartment and swapped it for lollipops. So as much as a lollipop's probably not the best thing to be eating at 7:30 in the morning, it's
that book's a phenomenal book. Like if anyone hasn't read that one,
what's the book? The Power of Habit, is it?
The Power of Habit. Like it talks about that. Like you just
And has anyone watched the Ronnie O'Sullivan documentary on Amazon?
Did it? Yeah.
No.
Unbelievable. Like, watch it when you get a chance, because not only does it, it touches on this, but it also shows him going through certain emotions at the highest pressure point of competitions and his performance coach talking to him in the changing room. So great insight. But he went down a road of drug and alcohol dependency, very addictive personality, and he replaced it with running, and then became absolutely obsessed with running. Injuring himself, just like, just went to the extreme. So again, two examples there where just came to mind when we were talking about that.
Yeah.
I think the other thing to feed off of Ian's there is he's got it in his phone. It's getting measured. It's being tracked. It's not just a pie in the sky goal. It has steps that feed into a bigger goal. And I think one of the things where it says, why people fail, Ian, you've said it, Dave, you said it near the beginning. It's very much a case of, it's like, I've got this big goal, but no real plan attached, steps that lead to it. It's like going to the gym tomorrow, being 20 stone or 20 pound overweight, for example, and expecting a 6-pack in a week. It doesn't work like that. But the lack of planning means there's a lack of commitment. So they all go hand in hand, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Rob, we were talking, you were WhatsApping me a couple of weeks ago, weren't you, about your ultra, your 24-hour, and kind of talking about any little tips and things. And I sent you a bit of a kind of rough idea of a plan. And the first thing that you said, right, let me implement that into my diary. So it's like, right, gone to someone that's done it. Here's my suggestion. You take your version of it. And the first thing he's done is he's put it as an implementation into his diary. So he's allocated the time. So he's committed to it instantly. So it's
I've already added it into like our family diary about like dates I'm running in. So I've got it all structured in as a fundamental thing. I always say is that if you're going to go out and do a run in the morning, you've got to tell yourself that you are going to go and do it. So you put your shoes by the door, you get your gear ready. Like you're training that subconscious part to say, no, I'm in business here. Not, I might go and do a run tomorrow if I feel like it.
Yeah.
Like you said, Ian, you can have accountability partners, like you said at the beginning, with your other guy that you go, how are you getting on with your achievements? But that's like, it's accountability partner to go on at something, but you still have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, like, am I doing this or am I not? Because it's easy to do the blame game on everyone else.
Yeah.
Like blame the weather, blame this situation, or blame this happening. I haven't been able to achieve it because of X, Y, and Z. It's like, no, it's your fault.
Yeah.
It's doing it with intent, isn't it? Like you say, you've planned it into your calendar. So that, like an appointment, like this recording, this was in our diaries. So we commit to it. But had we just said, oh, boys, if anyone's around at 4, anyone we might hop on, we might not, then no one will be here.
Yeah.
I think organisation and planning is so important for anything, but particularly in this. Like I've just done a day of reviews. We've had 5 reviews. Now, had we not turned up for the staff reviews with the pay structure, the plan of action, the 5 bags of Christmas presents that we had down there that we wanted to give them, then all of those things wouldn't have happened. But because they were preempted, it meant that the day went seamlessly and I was on time for this call and everyone was kind of like happy at the end of it because it was planned out, organised before. In the same way with Bartlett's dad, if he decided to quit smoking and the plan was to bring lollipops in, and then that day he had to go to the shop and get lollipops, he'd have probably bought fags instead of lollipops. But if he's the day before gone, right, I've got lollipops in the car, lollipops at work, lollipops at home, but then he's planned and committed to it. And I think that makes quite a big difference. The thing that I had with this is because I was actually talking to my dad about this recently, maybe only 10 days ago, something like that. And he's quite frustrated because he's not as mobile as he was before. He's put on a bit of weight, and his big thing next year was about getting fitter and more mobile. And he can't go to yoga because he can't keep up with the people going to yoga. So he's like, I can't afford to do a personal yoga session. So like, what do I do? And we kind of stripped it back to like, why do you actually want to be fitter and mobile? Which all stemmed to the fact that he's got 8 young grandkids. And he hates the fact that he can't get down on the floor to play with any of them because he couldn't get back up. That's the driver for him to go and commit to that in the new year, not the idea of being more mobile. It's the idea of him playing with his grandkids while they're young, because they're not going to be young forever. He might not be around forever. So it's also when you've got that kind of New Year's reso, that new goal, what happens if you don't do it? For him, he never gets to play with any of his grandkids on the floor, on the sofa, and sort of have that moment that maybe other grandparents can do. So when you trigger that to your excuse of, oh, I don't want to go to yoga, or I don't want to stretch, or I want to eat that cheesecake, or, you know, I don't want to go to the shop and get a load of chicken breasts and meal prep. But if I don't, I can't do X, and whatever X is to you, that's the thing that you should always remember, that goes, right, actually, let's commit.
I think Ian,
right?
Yeah, I was to say, like, you can create a thing called the 7 levels of why. So if you can't get to level 7, it's not a deep enough reason that you want to do it. So if it goes to level 2 and level 3, and you're still like, oh, it's just got nothing left in me, then you know you're going to fail at it. Like,
7 things of why. What's that? Explain that a little bit.
7 levels of why. So you ask yourself, like, why do I want to achieve this?
Yeah.
Self response, but why? Give yourself a response, but why? Give yourself a response. You go 7 levels down.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If you go into 3 and 4 and you still can't get a real why behind it, and because that's where Ian was saying, that's where you get your deeper. That's where you go. It's not actually, I want to go to the gym, I want to do yoga. The why actually is like, I want to get on the floor with my grandkids and be able to get up.
And that's powerful.
And then you anchor that why, that 7-leveled why, into when you're out and that inner chat comes in, or you're trying to do yoga, or you're trying to do this, whatever, you always anchor that sentence. You say, this is the why I'm doing this.
I can so relate to that one specifically, and I wasn't familiar with the 7 levels of why before you shared it there, but back in 2016 I did a white collar boxing event, and it was to raise money for cancer research, and at the time my mum was going through treatment, and so every time, like, I was training twice daily, sometimes 3 times daily, and every day I'd wake up aching and sore, and like, I don't want to do this, but my why was bigger than me. It was my mum, and so I just did it, and I got in really great shape in like 8 weeks, and got in that ring. I'd never got in a boxing ring before, getting in a ring in front of 1,200 people, with what was a man mountain of a guy, because obviously at the time I was heavy and he was a big lump. If you haven't seen the picture, I'll share it with you. He was a lumpy guy who did K1 kickboxing. But the why was greater than my excuses.
Yeah.
Every day I was like, from about day 4, I was aching like you wouldn't believe. But I have to do this. I have no choice.
There's that story on Chris Williamson's podcast, Modern Wisdom, where he talks about a friend they had when they were younger that was very overweight. And they'd always chip away at him saying, you need to lose weight because of X, Y, and Z. You need to lose weight. What are you going to do about it? And then they didn't see each other. It must have been, university times or afterwards, but they saw each other sort of a few years later, and the friend had lost all the weight and looked great. And they had a conversation, and the friend just said, I sort of came home, or I woke up in the morning and my daughter was in tears. And I said, what's up? And she just said that she had a dream that daddy couldn't get out of bed and died. And like that suddenly was like the trigger, not just someone telling you should do it, but actually the trigger of like, shit, if I don't do this, that's worst case scenario. So massive why.
And it goes back to what Ian was saying about the 9 things that you're doing, Ian. Like, there's the whys behind all of them. Like, it goes back to New Year's resolutions and why it's bullshit, because you anchor yourself on an annual basis of 12 months. Like, but it's levels of goals every year. Like you said, Ian, like, you're on various different versions of this now.
Well, you have to plan that all out, especially with big annual goals. Like, I've got a running target, amount of miles I want to hit this year, and I'm 32 miles from it. I couldn't get to this point and go, I've got 400 miles per target. It's not possible. That's come from compounding it all the way through. And it's funny what that 7 layers of why that you just spoke about. I just looked at my goals as you were saying it, and I'll hit 8 this year, and there's one I won't hit. And the one I won't hit is to start and commit to family Spanish lessons. And I like the idea of the kids speaking Spanish. But I obviously don't have 7 layers of why to it. And there's no like background on it to say, what happens if they don't learn Spanish? They can't order me a beer on holiday? Like, that's not...
Well, it's a proper bar. I've got you covered. Yeah, I mean, I can do that, but they can't do it.
So that's the only one that I won't. And maybe we could call that a token goal. You're like, I just put that in because I like the idea of it, but I wasn't connected to it emotionally. If I was, I'd have got the Spanish lessons booked in, wouldn't I? And I haven't. So, and I couldn't give you 7 whys of that either. So, yeah.
What do you think, Dave? Did you have a 2023 goal, or what's your?
You know what, mate? I've not really got any major goal. I've got micro goals, but I set mine kind of all of the time. I don't have them. It's not that I don't set goals or like a resolution. My resolutions were set years ago, as in the type of person that I want to be. And I have like smaller goals now that are important to me at the time. But listening to everything, it doesn't matter what the goals are. A goal is a goal. Just because it's put at the 1st of January doesn't necessarily mean it's any different to any other goal throughout the year. It's just got a slightly different name and maybe theme to it. But yeah, we're going through what you're saying, the why. You need to have a why behind whatever it is you're going to do. Why is it important to you to do it? Because if not, it's just wasting your time. Some people might even pick the wrong resolution because they don't have the whys, but they feel like they should just do something. And that might not be good all of the time, but certainly to have a why. I'll tell you one thing I get a lot of people who don't know what to do going forward. They're kind of in a bit of a rut, they're stuck, and they don't know what to do to go forward. And one of the things that I learned a long time ago was when I used to journal quite a lot. And it was something that hit me once, and then I've helped other people with it. And it's to write down on a list everything that you don't want. Write down on a list everything that you don't want in your life. Draw a line down it, and then completely polar opposite on the other side, and that'll tell you a great indication of where you want to go in your life, because a lot of people are so tied up in the negativity around their lives, and rightly so to a degree. Sometimes it's nice to get that clear bit of perspective of, okay, what direction am I going to go in? Because when you get so low, sometimes it's difficult to get out of it. But yeah, that's a great one that I would do. So the why, the consistency of doing it, and obviously the grit and determination, which will be built from the why, and push forward with it. So yeah, that's my tuppence worth.
I'm interested though, Dave, in terms of someone that doesn't know, or someone that hasn't got the ability to work it out and get there.
Yeah.
Because obviously you said you have goals, you have things that you're working towards.
Yeah, I've still got goals I'm running with now. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you also said my New Year's resolutions I set years ago, which that's like your standard, isn't it? That's who you are as a person.
Who I wanted to be at the time. I didn't believe I was at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But if there was one thing in 2024 that you could deem as a success personally to you, fitness, business, professional, what's the one thing that's like banging around in your head at the moment that you would
right
go,
now?
Yeah.
Wow, this is massive for me. I've realized I used to not see myself in things, and I've learned to appreciate myself and be grateful to myself for the accomplishments that I've had to date. Because although I don't know what people's opinion of me are, but I always found that I needed to go throughout my life trying to impress people and attract people into me. I'd learned that was one way that I received love and attention from other people. And I always had a big pressure behind that to push me to go somewhere, which was great fuel to get me to certain places, but left me in different bits. And it's literally been in the last few weeks that I'm like fucking dancing about at the moment, me. I'm like a dog with 2 dicks. I'm so happy. But and I shared it with the guys. And yeah, so that for me, it was more of a personal thing. It was, who am I? What is it that I want? And where do I sit in this world? And yeah, that's what it was for me. It was a huge, huge thing for me. Some people, it might sound nothing, but to me, it was like monumental.
But how do you feel if you didn't get that? How do you feel if you didn't get that chance to sort of personally celebrate it?
How would I feel? Well, how I felt previously was unachieved. I can't tell you how I would have felt like past tense, but how I feel now is I feel like I have achieved quite a lot in my life, and I'm grateful for everything that I have and everything that I've been through. And I just see myself in a slightly different light than I did previously. I never really looked at me, but I had this hidden driving force, which was kind of built in me from childhood. And, you know, if you guys have been listening to these stories and the podcast, mine's on there, you'll know the upbringing that I had and where I find myself. And I've been on a discovery for the last 4 years, trying to figure out who I am, what am I doing, and where am I going. And I don't think I'm at the end of it yet, but I'm certainly a lot more confident about what's going to happen next year, even though I don't know what that is.
What would you say you would reward yourself with if you managed to celebrate that success personally? Is there something that would be nice little wins of rewards to kind of almost attach to the success that you have kind of almost acknowledged?
I've not really put a prize on it. The acknowledgement in itself was freeing. It gave me safety and freedom, which has now given me opportunity, and I'm unsure what I'm going to do with it.
It's a sort of almost time, effectively.
Yeah, time. It's given me opportunity. It's given me time. It's given me confidence in my next step more than I had previously.
I think you just touched on Ian. I don't know if you've ever seen the James Clear. He talks about start habits that stick and the 4 points for that. So he talks about cue, craving, response, and reward. So you touched on reward there, and obviously knowing that what you're going to get out at the end of it. But it's quite a good way to, you know, cue is the trigger to initiate behavior. Craving is the motivation and desire that sees it through. Response is the habit you perform, and then reward is the end goal of every habit. So, you know, one of mine sort of was related to exercise and 2 personal training sessions a week. So the cue would be the alarm going off. The craving would be, I want to get that feeling, that endorphin rush, that feeling that I'm getting fitter and stronger. The response of turning up at the gym, and then the reward of, you know, the weigh-in and photos at the end of the month, and being able to see them at the end of the year and go, wow, January to December, you know, very, very different. So yeah, I just heard that reward piece, and I mean, James Clear seems to know sort of about habits and what it takes to stick. So
A little bit.
one to read. But yeah, no, you've both Ian and Rob, I think it was, got your phones out to show how you track habits. I've gone old school, so I've got my daily habit tracker. Yeah, my daily habit tracker, and my 5 for 2023 were based around being fitter mentally and physically, becoming a better golfer and a better husband. So I wanted to track personal training 2 times a week, make sure I do my sessions, hit 90 golf balls a week to become a better golfer, set aside an hour self-development time per week on a Thursday evening when my wife goes to Pilates, share a bottle of wine, new red wine every week on a Friday evening with my wife, and then 8,000 steps a day. Just track how many times over the year that I could do that to make sure I'm moving more, and just the ability to have this next to my bed, and before going to bed tick off that I've done things was like the anchor, I suppose. It was always there next to the bed before and at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day. And I remember sort of it being put away in the drawer for a week, and my wife turned to me and said, "Where's your book gone?" And it made me realize, God, she's like digging me out for not having done it. So yeah, no, that sort of anchor of the book and just ticking it off, and that feeling of done has definitely helped me this year sort of achieve what I set out to.
Alex, on that one, like we've got that in our. There's actually a piece that Alex has written about this in our actual members bit on the website. You can go into, and there's actually a habit tracker for that as well. You can download. It's actually pulled on a point actually I completely forgot about. I said, like, downstairs in our kitchen, we actually have like a chalk style film that we put on one of the glass doors in the conservatory, and it's our family commitments to achieving goals. Mm-hmm. So Cal and I will sit down and go, right, what's our up and coming goals? We either do them weekly or monthly, and then we, as a family, we look at what we're going to commit to doing, achieving, and supporting each other. Mm-hmm. So, like, you know, we've already started to work out what's going to happen in January because we've already done the December one so far. And it's since we've had it up in the last maybe 6 months, it's massively increased the visuals of us looking at what we're doing, where we're at, conversation we have in the kitchen, whilst we're cooking and stuff like that. But ultimately, making sure that there's supportiveness between the partnership is there. Like, right, you haven't done that one. Like, what do you need me to do to support you out? Like the communication, we talked about this in the last podcast episode. You know, like, how are you getting on with that one? I haven't been able to do that. Okay, what do I need to flex to try and take away some of the responsibilities to try and help you achieve that, and vice versa? And that's massively excelled our partnership and what we're doing.
Yeah, no, it is. So if you could come up with now, obviously we've been talking about all of these different things. How could we summarize it into the top few things that people need to be doing so that they can unfuck their 2024, assuming that their 2023 has been completely fucked up so far? So Ian, you're the goal setter, the goal maestro. What do people need to be doing in January to ensure that they're hitting their goals? Not what could they be doing to ensure?
The first thing for me on any goal that I ever set is really just diving deep into that. Why am I actually setting it? Am I truly prepared to give myself the commitment that it's going to take throughout the year to achieve that goal? And that normally comes down to what happens if I don't do it, and how does that make me feel, versus how do I feel if I did do it. The positive reinforcement of achieving it is not normally strong enough. It's normally the negative like connotation of not doing it, which is the enforcement. That's just how my mind works. I wouldn't say that's for everyone. And then planning and habits, like Rob talked about habits, we spoke on it. Then you have to put the planning and the habits into it. I was talking to someone today about leadership, someone who's just about to embark on a role from being an individual into a leader. And she was asking me how you run a team. And this relates a little bit to what we're talking about here, because it's that kind of the power of three. You know, there's always three things in everything, isn't there? For me, it's my 3 goals in each thing, blah, blah, blah. 3 goals and 3 in 3. But 3 is a powerful number that gives you enough to kind of really think about what you've done. And I just said, your planning and your strategy for any team is the single most important thing that you can bring to it. And then secondary to that, you have to have a collective goal, a communal goal, something that you're all working towards. It's why a lot of departments and bosses fail when they don't share the vision or the goal, or even if it's a financial target, return, they don't share it with the team. They don't really know what they're working towards. It's the same with your goal. If you don't really know what that is, and you haven't got the organizational layer, you won't hit it. And then the top part of any leadership for me is the leader has to be valuable. And the only way they can stay valuable is to progress, self-development, learn, educate, progress themselves so they can bring it back to the team. That's how you keep inspiration levels high, and that's how you keep your team valuable. And it's same for your goal. What's the education behind it? What's the lessons? What's the learning? What do you need to know tomorrow you don't know today to help you achieve that goal? And I'm just thinking, because it's fresh in my mind from the chat I've had, it sinks in really nicely with an annual review. Yeah.
Has anybody else got any that they would like to add before we wrap this one up, guys?
I think it connects back to Ian's in some way, and I've heard it repeated a few times this year in various forms. Ian, you've got your trilogy, haven't you? So we've talked about each of the segments that comes under each header, but it's having the simplicity of, 1, 2, 3, but having them as headers rather than the main goal, so that you can focus on those. So, if I remember rightly, yours, Ian, is it health, family, health, and wealth?
Yeah.
And so a guy I met at an event recently, he was talking on stage about his family, fitness, and finance. And after listening to him talk about it the way he did, it really sat with me. And I was kind of like looking at it and going, I want that clarity, but his didn't sit right. So for me, it's about health first. If I don't start looking after myself, I'm not very selfish. I need to be better at being selfish for my own well-being. So health has to come first, because if I haven't got my health, then my family and everything else become redundant, right? So for me, mine are health, family, and happiness. Because if I'm happy, I'm healthy, and my family are in a good place, then my business will automatically just be in a good spot, purely for the fact that I know how I've operated in the past. So I think breaking it back, and every morning those 3 are my reminder, like, what am I doing today to influence those 3? And then having those subcategories underneath each. Great, I've dialed into that one. I'm doing that one today. That's planned in So that for me would be the simplicity, but then also the ability to break it down.
And
last one, you were talking about that. James Smith, something that really resonated with me, James Smith, this year around losing weight. He was like, a lot of people want to lose 10 kilos, but just lose a fucking kilo and then lose it 10 times.
Yeah.
And we go into the new year with these, I'm going to lose 10 kilos. And within 2-3 weeks, people are like frustrated that it hasn't dialed, like the scales haven't dropped down, or there's fluctuations in it. But like, if you just celebrate the 1 times 10 rather than just trying to celebrate the 10, it allows you to, one, measure it, continue and flow with it, stay committed to it, and actually enjoy that process rather than it being a massive, like you said, Ian, like run 100 miles. Even the fact that you said I've got to run another 35 miles now. I remember you 2-3 years ago, the fact even trying to run a marathon was a greater challenge for you. Now, because you've run 100 miles because you stretch yourself, 35 doesn't seem so much. And I think, so if someone wants to run like, a long distance, start running around a block first.
Yeah.
And see if you can run around a quicker and another quicker. See how you can go 5K and see how you get on with a faster 5K and 10K and then whatever it is going forward after that.
You saying that, just sorry to feed off that real quick, and it's quite inspiring. Someone in my team shared it with me the other day because she's looking at signing up to this coach, 444 coaching on Instagram. Cassia, I think her name is. In 2019, she was morbidly obese, medically morbidly obese. She started with literally going out of her front door and running to a tree, which took 20 seconds. And she's phenomenal. And she's now run ultra marathons, and she's now coaching like that. That is compounding. Ian, great example of exactly the same. 3 years ago, a marathon was a stretch. Now you've done ultras. It's the compounding effect, right?
100%. I know that lady. She's phenomenal. Like, and the story of, like she said, like I ran to one tree and I ran to another tree and then I see if I could run it fast, and I kept on doing the same thing. And this is what was very interesting. Like the commitment to consistency. It's easy to go, I'm going to do this and I'll do that and I'm going to try this and try that. But actually, like Ian was saying, like some of the things is like, no, I want to run a faster 5K. I want to run a faster 10K. So when you step up to the plate, it's like, right, today I'm doing 5K, not doing a load of random shit and then get frustrated a few months later that I'm still doing a load of random shit and still not achieving my goals.
Yeah.
I think this is the thing for her though, wasn't it? She wasn't measuring it in weight she wanted to lose.
Yeah,
she was running for 20 seconds was as far as she could go. But so for her, 21 seconds the next time was a win.
Yeah.
And so I think changing the goal from in her example, losing X amount of weight to I want to achieve something that actually I feel I can enjoy is probably more powerful.
I think that the golf one for me was that I'd gone through stages of going, I want to get from this handicap to, 12 handicap or whatever in 2 years. And that was my number. But actually just going, okay, I'll hit 90 golf balls a week, every week. And then naturally I've gone from a 24 handicap to a 16 handicap this year. Like, it just happens as a byproduct of getting the process right. And I just think
for those that don't play golf, that's a phenomenal improvement, by the way.
Yeah, it's huge, mate.
I think just my big thing from for people is that, ultimately a goal, a target should be able to be started anytime within a 12-month period. Like the problem with New Year's resolutions is it's like 1st of Jan, this is me, and it's almost forced, and you have to come up with something, and that's where are you passionate about it, or have you just come up with something because it's 1st of Jan, you need to go. So I think whether it's the 1st of Feb, the 15th of Jan, you get the realization on the 20th of April. If you want it enough, start it and commit to it. And even if you want it enough now, nothing wrong with starting on the 21st of December and just getting things underway.
Yeah, don't wait. 100% is exactly what I was going to say.
Next time, plant a tree.
I wanted to that I'll share with you on that one, because 22nd of January I got my cold pod, right? And I visualized, the cold pod was to visualize me to do a speaking event. And the goal actually I had was to motivate. I've got it in this my fear to motivate 100 people. Like, and that was the one thing I wanted to do. And the goal was to visualize sitting in that pod 3 minutes a day, visualizing me standing on the stage with 100 people, and that with my late friend Chris behind. And then it's 14th of January, that's physically going to take place. So like, if I was trying to do it as a goal in, the traditional 2023 goals, I'd be like, I haven't hit that goal. but it's going to happen 14 days afterwards in 2024. So
Right.
like, but still within a 12-month period.
Yeah, it's powerful, mate. Really
I think
powerful.
one of the things when people set these goals as well is, and it goes back to breaking it down and making it a little bit simpler for yourself. One of the worst things you can do is overstretch it in January, because if you fail it in January, do you know the message that's sending out to you for the rest of the year? If you're only making a goal once a year, that you're probably not good enough. And that is a thought that you don't want in your head. So 100% be taking into consideration these, you know, make it more achievable for you. Not easy, just achievable. You know, if you've got the 100-mile goal, can you do it a mile a day? Can you do this, that, the other, and try and break it down? So yeah, I think that's massive as well. So guys, anybody else got anything we want to add before we wrap this one up?
Last one, because I love this stuff. I know you're going to get wound up because you're like, let's go. Last one I'll tell you about is before you start in January and you're going to go through these challenges of trying to build and do goals and commitments and stuff like that. Name your inner critic and name your champion. I've said about this in the past. Name your inner bitch, give it a name, and give yourself a champion name, yeah? So when you're in those moments of...
Hey, there we go. What's going on here?
When you're in those, when you're in those moments and the inner critic, you named it, then you've got to then come through with your champion. Like Ian, an undeniable amount of, I'm going to do this because I've already achieved this. My champion's coming out and telling me. So like everyone's always going to be in that shit period of like no man's land. I'm in the middle of it. I'm trying to work it out. I'm having a bit of a failure. Remove the inner critic by going, okay, what have I done in the past that I've achieved greatness from that I know that I'm going to get through this? Yeah. It only comes when you actually characterize those two little inner chats that sometimes happen in your brain. And it's
more balloons. He's getting loads of them. What gold advice looks like on here.
I don't know what that.
Someone's sending you like live video credits, I think.
Like, yeah. For anyone that's not watching, Rob has had balloons circling around his head every time he's made a comment in the last 2 minutes. So
look how smiling he is. Look at it. He's letting his balloons out.
Jazz hands down. That's what I keep them out.
I love the inner critic thing, and some people they'll have that conversation. Some people have something else go through their head. I always have that sort of like quote or that slogan or that something that means something for me in the time of challenge, and it just by setting it before and associating it with the win, the reward, or the loss of it, whichever way you look at it, it brings it back to fruition. And it's amazing what the human body can do. You know, it is incredible how much you can change. I mean, I haven't seen James in a while on a Zoom or anything, but you look like a 4 times healthier man than I last saw you. So, you know, you're glowing, you look really good, and you can tell that and you're talking about health at the moment on this call. So something happened to you a while ago that went health. And like Alex says, you can start at any point. So, you know, whenever you're listening to this podcast, just start it now. I hate it when someone says to me, yeah, I'm going back into the gym next Monday. Tuesday. What are you doing? What are you talking about? Just go tomorrow. So yeah, start, don't hesitate. And yeah, you can tell, you know, people around you, you know, share, chat, but at the end of the day, it's all on you. No one else is going to force you to do it. So yeah.
Quick one before we do wrap it up, based on Rob's last one. What's your inner critics called, Rob, for everybody that's listening? What's your champion and your critic called?
Reggie and Rocky.
And what does it sound like when you're running up a hill and you're finding it tough?
Oh, mate, I'll tell you, sometimes on Sundays, I've been running around in the middle of nowhere, and where I live, there's like a religious Bruderhof society, and they just appear out of nowhere. So sometimes I'm running up the hill, and Reggie's in there, and I'm shouting at myself. So I must look like an absolute lunatic with my headphones in. And all of a sudden, like, these people appear, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, you're ultra religious, and you've probably heard me swear consistently up this hill whilst you're going on a nice Sunday walk. But it does, like, and the bit is like, come on, Rob, you've fucking done this hill hundreds and hundreds of times. You can do it. Let's go. And that's the bit where people sometimes forget, like on Sunday, I did my 5 miler, flowed so well. And like 6K into it, I was like going for a good pace for what I'm doing. But the critics started to come out because the wind started to hit me in a direction. And I was like, nope, Come on, let's go. 2K in, 2K in. You're running consistency. Don't bitch out. Let's go. And that's like that's a big thing for me.
I love it. Well, on that bombshell, we're going to get going now, guys. I hope you've taken something from this podcast, and we hope that you can smash any goals or ambitions that you've got for 2024. And certainly, hopefully, it's not going to be fucked up like 2023 might have been. That's it from now. Take it easy, guys. I'll see you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys.